Ready to up your goals? Are you looking to enter your very first marathon? Well, it can be a daunting prospect, running 26.2 miles for the very first time, but with a bit of planning and patience, it is a totally achievable goal. All right, we're presuming that you're not starting from scratch. A marathon is a natural progression on from a half marathon, or if you're really impatient, you could step it up from a 10K, but I would make sure that you allow more time if that's where you're coming from. And you need to be honest with yourself when you come to the planning phase. Where are you at the moment? Are you currently running? Could you say go and run a half marathon tomorrow? Not fast, but could you manage that distance? If yes, stay tuned. If no, then I would recommend you go and watch our half marathon video for beginners and then come back once you're ready. So in order to run a marathon, you're going to be doubling the distance of the furthest race you've ever done before. And this is going to require a considerable increase in the amount of training mileage. Now, if you're someone who's already run several half marathons, or you're currently used to running 4 or more times a week and you've done that for a few years, your body's going to be quite adapted and ready to absorb that increase in training compared to someone who's maybe relatively new to running. And yes, you might have got up to a half marathon, but on a steeper trajectory, then it might allow, or you might need to allow a little bit more time when it comes to the preparation. Now, the reason I'm pointing this out now is, yes, we're going to have a plan that we're going to share with you, but it's very much you're going to have to adapt it to fit you, because everyone is different and everyone has a different running background and history. So in order to stay on the safe side, we're going to recommend a 16-week time frame to build up to your marathon. If you feel that you're really conditioned and you're going to be ready sooner than that, then you can take it down to 12 weeks, but I would recommend nothing less than that to make sure you're fully prepared. And it's a good idea to sit down in an evening and open up your laptop and take a search of events that will tick that box. So you've got your minimum time frame to start with, and then you want to look at the distance and how far you want to travel. Do you want to do a big city marathon, something more local? Do you prefer a hilly route or something flatter? There's a lot to think about. I personally have only done a couple of marathons and they've been big city ones, and I have loved the energy that you get from the crowd. And I know it's only psychological, but it really does feel it gives you that boost in those last few miles. Fun bit done. It's now time for the hard work, and you need to find yourself a structured plan. Whether you're going to devise one yourself or you can take one off the internet that's ready-made, there are plenty of those out there. And we're here to guide you through that progression and also talk you through those essential runs that you really need to make sure you nail in your marathon plan. Talking of which, probably the most important one and the most significant difference is going to be your long run. It's going to be considerably further than a long run you would have needed to do for a half marathon. In fact, you actually want to be reaching between 18 and maybe even up to 22 miles for your furthest long run. But that you do need to make sure that you get in time with a good 2 weeks or more before your marathon, so you've got that time to recover and make sure your body is fully adapted. But that distance is sometimes met with a shock at actually still being potentially 4 to 8 miles off your longest distance. But we'll explain how and why that is. Well, let me explain the reasoning behind this. It's logical that your legs need to be comfortable running much further than a half marathon in training. Your legs will become conditioned to that impact and the time on feet, but it's not just your musculoskeletal system that you're training. Your digestive system will need training too, or at least the chance to get used to fueling as you're actually running. And the long run is the perfect opportunity for experimenting with what nutrition you like, as well as the actual act of consuming whilst on the move. Don't panic here though, it's perfectly acceptable to walk whilst you tuck into your chosen gel or chosen fuel. In fact, it's actually quite a good idea to start doing that, and once you're ready, then you can try it whilst running. And the reason for not taking your long run beyond 20 miles or at an absolute push 22 miles is due to the fact of the time it will take your body to recover. If you're following a structured plan and you're gradually building up these runs and you're including at least 2 or 3 other runs in the week, then your body is going to be conditioned enough and ready for the race. When you start going over that distance, it takes your body so long to recover that it's actually going to be detrimental to the rest of your training, and it'll have an overall negative effect. And obviously you're going to need to build up to this distance gradually. So if you can start off your long run at around 8 miles or 13k, or if you're comfortable running that, then maybe a little bit further. And then you're going to continue to build that up for the 13 to 14 weeks leading up to your race. And then about 3 or 2 weeks out at the very latest, that's when you get in your longest run and you back it off after that. And with that progression, it doesn't need to be entirely linear. It's quite a good idea to actually build for 3 or 4 weeks and then take, say, the 5th week easier where you don't progress, or maybe you even keep that long run a little bit shorter, so it just gives your mind and your body a little bit of a reset, and then you continue to build again and you keep repeating that cycle until you've reached that marathon prep time. And before we go on, just quickly want to touch on the pace of your long run. I don't want you getting too hung up on marathon pace. This is your first marathon you're training for, so it's about trying to run as much of it as you can. So the same goes for your long run. Try to go at a pace that you feel you can really maintain for the whole of that duration. It's okay to walk for little sections if you need to, like practicing your fuel, for example. And if you can run with somebody else and you can make it a conversational pace, that's a really good guidance and marker. Training for a marathon is not just about the long run, so we probably should address the rest of your training. Now, you can run a marathon on 3 training runs a week, but ideally, if you can make it 4, you'll just be able to hit a little bit more consistency, and if for some reason you do need to miss a session 1 week, it's going to be far less noticeable. And when you come to planning those 4 runs into your week, there's no set day you need to do any particular run, but I would say that the majority of people tend to do their long run on a weekend because most of us seem to have more time. Well, I would recommend, though, planning the rest of your training around that long run. So get that one in the diary, and then you can work out the rest of your runs around that, making sure that they're nicely spread out so your body has time to recover after each of your runs. With 4 runs to fit into your week, it leaves us with one other sort of more structured and actually a bit of a quicker run. It's going to be at a faster pace than your long run and your easy runs. Now, the idea of this being faster but also shorter, it's going to really work on improving your fitness. And this run needs to be somewhere between 50 and 60 minutes in length, and including a total of 15 up to 30 minutes of harder, more intense work. We'll build this up so that the first few weeks you could look to do something like 3 lots of 5 minutes, working at around a 7 out of 10 on the effort scale, taking 3-minute jog recovery between each. And then you can build this on up to 2 lots of 10 minutes, and then maybe take it another step further to 5 lots of 5 minutes and up to 2 lots of 15 minutes towards the end over that 14-week build period. Well, this is just a suggestion for you to work from. But as for the effort level, you should only be able to say a few words at a time. And yes, you will be breathing heavily. So with it being a really key and a faster session, you need to make sure that you've got a thorough warm-up in before it and plenty of time for your cool down. And this shorter, harder run, let's call it your threshold run, wants to ideally be sort of the other end or the other side of the week compared to your long run. So 3 or 4 days apart, which will give your body plenty of time to adapt and recover from these 2 key sessions. Well, now that leaves the supplementary runs we've already talked about, which will help make that total weekly mileage add up and also just get your legs conditioned and used to having that time on feet. And ideally, if you're going to get those 4 runs in a week, that will leave you with 2 of these extra runs. But they're both going to be really easy, ranging from around 30 to 60 minutes in length. And actually, for the really easy recovery run, you can keep it as short as 30 minutes. It's quite a good idea to put that one either the day or 2 days after your threshold, your harder run, because it'll actually help your legs with recovery and make them feel better ahead of your long run that will be coming up a few days after that. So with all of that in mind, a typical week could look something like this. So Monday, you could do a 50 to 60 minute steady pace run. Wednesday is a great day for doing that threshold run, that harder work. Thursday, the day straight after, you can do your 30-minute super easy run that's going to help with that recovery, and that should build you nicely into Saturday for your long run. And then if you do have time to fit in any conditioning work or aerobic cross training on a couple of the other days, that would really complement your overall training. So you could use Tuesday and say Friday. But do remember though to have at least 1 complete rest day a week. The key here is going to be having a structured plan and sticking to it. Like I mentioned in the intro, patience is key when you're training for a marathon, and you can't get away with upping the volume too quickly, or if you miss a big chunk, thinking that you can make up for that, because that's when niggles and injuries will start to appear. We've touched on nutrition and practicing during a long run, which I really can't emphasize enough. It becomes so important on race day. But also, don't forget the actual overall nutrition of making sure your body is staying healthy and it's got the adequate fuel and all of those actual vitamins and minerals that you need for being able to recover from your sessions, and also make sure that you're prepared for the next one. Footwear is another aspect that you need to think about. Obviously, you want to make sure you've got a shoe that's comfortable and is giving you enough cushioning as you're running further than you're used to. But also keep an eye on wear, because you're going to be doing more miles. Your shoes will wear out quicker than what you're probably used to. And finally, let us know or let a friend know what marathon you've entered or you're planning on preparing for, because saying it out loud will really help you to hold yourself accountable and to motivate yourself. And if you can, find someone you can do some run training with, whether that's in a club, just a local group, or even a friend, just for your long runs even. It will make such a difference and it'll make that time fly by. And if you are entering a marathon, they tend to be, most of them are held in the spring and the autumn. And if you're aiming for one of those, you'll probably naturally find that there's lots of other people training for the same event, which in itself can be quite motivating. So good luck. I really hope it goes well for you and you enjoy it, and you'll be back for plenty more running. And let us know in the comments section below. Give us a like if you've enjoyed the video, and finally hit that globe if you've not yet subscribed.